Alright, let's talk about forts. I love the idea of forts. I think they're awesome. But there are some things that I would change because they are a bit lackluster. It's a great idea and it's a good start, but I would love to see it expanded upon. So here's what I would change. Make a large area around the fort PvP only. So you must be flagged to enter the area. In reality, you would actually make it a zone. So instead of you being prompted for, that you need to be flagged to enter at the gate, you can remove the gates, give circle radius, maybe by like 300 feet, because the maps aren't that big, so you can't make a circle that large. But on three sides of the circle, let's say east, west, and north, you have additional war camps for each of the three factions. So these three war camps are spawn points for each faction. They're just outside the PvP zone and act as sanctuaries. The PvP protection timer will be removed from these specifically, and you can only spawn here if you died in the corresponding PvP zone, and camps cannot be placed inside the PvP zone. So this will solve a few issues. This will solve campsite zerging at forts. This will allow other factions to actually meet up at a certain point, because currently there's only one war camp that you can meet up at, or some other central location to strategize on how to attack the fort if that's what you're planning on doing. It also adds more strategy involved for the defenders and the attackers. Instead of dying and really having no punishment involved for it, just respawning at a camp that you have 5 feet right outside the fort door doesn't really mean anything for killing another player. I would also reposition a few of the fast travel shrines away from the forts. Currently there are a few shrines that are really close to the fort and encourages zerging. I can understand the argument for this though, because you do want people to respond relatively quickly to a fort attack or to a fort defense. So this is a good way to encourage PvP, but it's also a good way to encourage a lot of people coming in with relative ease. Another big thing with forts are the capture rewards, or the lack of thereof. Let's say you and your pals capture a fort. You should be rewarded for your efforts, right? So on a capture or a defense, you should also be rewarded reputation, XP, gold, reputation tokens, and a small amount of influence. And this influence will decrease the amount of enemy influence if you do own that territory. If you don't, it will increase your influence by a marginal amount if you're attacking that territory. Marginal amount, I mean maybe about 5%, something relatively quickly and something that cannot be abused easily. But let's talk about the faction reward. I would like to see reward phases introduced. Phase 1. Your faction holds the fort for 24 hours consecutively. After those 24 hours are up, it goes into Phase 2. Phase 1 rewards are now upgraded to Phase 2 rewards. So for instance, no longer a 5% XP buff, but a 10% XP buff, as an example, and so on. This could go on for 5 or 6 phases. But essentially, the longer you hold the fort consecutively, the greater rewards for you and your faction. In order to draw more people to the fort, you should make it that you need to talk to an NPC inside the fort to receive the bonus, or perhaps a consumable or reward for each phase. This will promote people wanting to attack forts and defend forts at any moment. So if you're out leveling, or you're level 60, and you see something's going on, you're holding, you're at hour 23 of hour 24 of that fort, and you happen to be online at that time, you're going to do everything in your power, I hope, to defend that fort, to make sure that your faction gets those phase 2 rewards, right? So things like that can have a huge impact on open world PvP. A few other changes I would make. Add dynamic rotating buffs to each fort. This will ensure any and all forts will be fought over at any time. So for an example, let's take Cutlass Keys. That fort has the 50% discount on fast travel. Well, that buff is always there no matter what. Well, instead, how about we rotate that buff out to a randomized fort, whether it's daily or weekly, so multiple forts are fought over, not just the same one repeatedly over and over again. Another issue is, if all zones, or most zones, are under invasion or under declaration of war, then open world PvP is pretty much dead until it's resolved. This should be adjusted by allowing forts to be captured during this time. Forts should only be locked out when the war or invasion is currently ongoing. If this doesn't change, I would like to see another system in place that will allow for meaningful PvP outside of forts as well. So I think these changes can help open world PvP around forts be in a much better spot, because currently they can be infinitely zerged by respawning at camps right out, 5 feet right outside the gate. And the players who took the time, the gold, and the repair parts to fight and capture the fort, they don't get nothing for it currently, but they should be rewarded for their efforts. And the people who defended against a successful attack against the fort should also be rewarded for their efforts. The people, part of your faction who did not take part in the fight, also get the benefits. So that's why I propose that you need, in order to get the buff or the bonus, you need to go inside the fort, talk to somebody, interact with something to be able to get it. And just to summarize, all this does is create a system that offers such a strong incentive that all players of your faction are willing to come and defend and attack a fort at any moment. I would love to see these changes into the game, because forts has such a potential, and I can't wait to see how it's going to evolve. And those were my thoughts on forts and fort PvP. Thanks for watching. Peace.